Veteran Plaxico Burress, it's good to have you.
What's going on, big time? How you doing, man? Good to see you.
I'm doing well.
Welcome to the show.
Yeah,
welcome back to the show.
Welcome back to the show.
Thank
You
you.
had a good weekend, I guess. You were Michigan State homecoming.
Yeah, I had a good week. I went back up to my alma mater, Michigan State, and watched them, walk all over Wyoming.
Yeah.
It was
a walk.
Listen, let's not get too comfortable. I couldn't find you when they got shellacked by Oregon a few weeks ago. So let's be careful about that.
Oregon. Oregon's a very good football team.
They should. Yeah, it could have been.
By the way, does the University of Michigan still play football anymore?
Oh, boy.
I'm not sure
about
about
my recollection, I don't think so.
I don't
At
think
least
so
not right
either.
now.
Okay, all right. Well, coming up on the show today, it is October, so you know what that means. It's baseball's postseason is upon us. Stephen A picked the Royals to win in the AL wildcard game. Skip picked the A's. We'll talk about the game, and we'll break it all down. And again, as I mentioned, Plaxico Burress is hanging out with us throughout the show today, so it is our treat. But first, let's get to Tom Brady. He gives us a very honest assessment of what has happened to the Patriots offense after being blown out at Arrowhead Stadium on Monday Night Football. Let's listen.
We don't have the kind of offense that is going to perform at a high level. Everyone's connected. It all ties together. We're not playing well, so we're not going to have good stats. I always have confidence going into the games, and I have confidence in my teammates and what I think we can accomplish. We just didn't get it done. We fell behind to a good team on the road in a tough environment, and it snowballed on us.
All right, well, if history is any indication, Brady and the Patriots shouldn't be worried or push the panic button just yet. Besides Belichick's first season with New England Patriots, the Pats have started 2-2 or worse 4 times, but finish at least with 10 wins in each season. So no real reason to panic. At least that's what history says. So here's the question. How much confidence do you have in the Patriots moving forward? I'll give it to you, guest debater.
Well, I have a lot more, confidence in the Patriots than everybody else does. I mean, you have to look at the fact that they're still playing in the AFC East. It's not like they're competing in the NFC West. I mean, obviously they don't have the same football team that they had last year, maybe in the years prior. But for the most part, I mean, I think the Patriots are going to rebound. They ran into a juggernaut the other night in Kansas City. I don't think they were prepared. I think the first thing that stood out to me is that they were out-coached. I mean, if you look at it from an offensive and defensive standpoint, I mean, Andy Reid hit those guys with an array of formations.
He did.
It was a great game plan. Alex Smith got the ball out of his hands quick. It's what the Philadelphia Eagles, when Andy Reid was there, is what they called an extended running game. Throwing screens to Jamal Charles, getting the balls up to the tight ends on bubble screens and different things like that. And the New England Patriots just couldn't tackle the run. It was not like Alex Smith dropped back and threw for 300 or 400 yards. It was throwing hitches to Don Avery. Guys couldn't make the tackle.
They still ran for 207, though.
I know. As I said, they could not tackle the run. If you can't tackle the run in this league, you're just going to have a tough time. But I will say this. For the first time of his career, Tom Brady looked 37.
Yeah, okay.
You know what? I don't agree with that. And I don't agree with it because I saw Tom Brady look a little bit like that in a particular Super Bowl when Michael Strahan and those boys were coming after him when some dude named Plaxico Burress scored the winning touchdown in that Super Bowl. I saw him tap
after the
dancing.
luckiest throw in the history.
Not again. We're bringing that up again.
There we go again. Not the day skip.
Interrupt me, okay?
Somebody
I saw him tap dancing like the late, great Gregory Hines, God rest his soul. Here's the reality of the situation. When we look at Tom Brady, pointing to his age is the easy way out. Give Tom Brady protection, and Tom Brady will look like Tom Brady. Give Tom Brady, put him in a position, rather, where he has to tap dance and he has to watch his back because he has no protection whatsoever, particularly with the absence of Logan Mankins. And what do you have? You have Tom Brady looking like Tom Brady still. This is the way he looks when he's under pressure. This is the way he looks when you don't protect him, which is why it is egregious and practically unforgivable for Coach Bill Belichick to let go of Mankins, so for them not to do everything they can to buffer their offensive line. I would be more forgiving, and please don't get me wrong. Not that Bill Belichick needs my forgiveness. The man is a genius as a football coach. We all know what he can do. We know how great he is. But I'm saying, to me, more than receivers, more than a running game, the first order of business is to protect your resident star, to make sure that your offensive line is buffered. If you've got those boys up front blocking for Tom Brady, then you'd be surprised what opportunities present themselves in the passing as well as the running game. Andy Reid did outcoach Bill Belichick. Maybe it was Josh McDaniels that got outcoached as well, because when you've got 17 of your first 23 snaps being, taking place from the shotgun position, then you're basically making Tom Brady target practice for Tom
the loudest outdoor stadium in the
That's
NFL.
right, for Tom Ali, for Houston and those boys, and that's exactly what happened, because they were putting some licks on him. In the end, though, one of the things that we have to recognize, that collective bargaining agreement that they agreed to a couple of years ago, that basically cut that practice time in half. Let me tell you why I'm going to say you need to hear it. You might not want to hear it, but coaches want to hear it. Coaches will tell you in a heartbeat, when you don't have that many sessions, it takes you a while to gel rather. What I would say to you, Plex, is this:
they got whipped. That's why.
No. What I'm saying to you, well, they were saying this before they got whipped. I'm saying to you that if you look at the New England Patriots, the reason why I give credence to that argument is because when you let go of somebody like Mankins, okay, then what happens is that you've got to adjust things, and it takes time to adjust. So to me, the jury is still out on the New England Patriots. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying there's no way to definitively say that you nor anybody else is right about the Patriots until we give them a little bit more time to see what's up.
Are you waffling on your Super Bowl pick?
No.
You're hoping so.
New England says Stephen A. Smith will win the Super Bowl.
I picked them to win the Super Bowl, to come out of the AFC. First of all, when we talk about the New England Patriots on this show, we're disregarding the AFC East. I mean, they're getting that by default.
We're talking about them winning the Super Bowl.
We're talking about
How did you
them in the
come
AFC.
up with that?
Well, I came up with that because
Listen to this.
I came up with that, number one, because the Denver Broncos got punked in the Super Bowl, and I don't know if they're going to recover from that. When you take them out of the equation, obviously Cincinnati has more talent. The Baltimore Ravens didn't make the playoffs last year. Flacco didn't seem to know what to do without Peter, even though having Steve Smith there going to help them immensely. I'm still not sold on the Pittsburgh Steelers. The San Diego Chargers are good, but at the same time, we didn't see that they were going to be this good. This was before the season began. I looked at the New England Patriots, and I said, excuse me, you got Darrelle Revis, you got Vince Wilfork, you got Gerard Mayo coming back on the defensive side of the ball. Offensively, despite some of their troubles last year, they were still third in terms of points. So I look at it from that perspective, them having Tom Brady, and I'm like, why not?
Skip, you want to get in, or you want Plax to respond?
No, I've been enjoying Plax kicking away
I like
at this
it.
man.
Go ahead.
Y'all can try. Ain't nobody running.
Go ahead.
Me too. Do you see me dunking?
First of all, Adelman is no Wes Welker. Tom Brady doesn't have a wide receiber that can
I've always said
that can get down the football field.
That.
So I don't know how you can sit there and say minus Aloga Makins and minus Welker. I don't know how you can sit there and say that the New England Patriots are the favorite to win the Super Bowl over Seattle.
No, I didn't say no. I was thinking.
You said they're going to win the Super Bowl.
Because I'm thinking that Seattle. Well, see, where I messed up is that I thought New Orleans or San Fran was going to take out Seattle.
It's a mess up now.
Yeah. I'm like, going to take out Seattle.
Okay. I will break the argument here.
Sure.
I am loving the mind-blowing overreaction to 41-14 on Monday night. Mm-hmm. I want the haters to hate all week. I want even some Patriot fans who should not deserve to be called Patriot fans after this week to continue to panic instead of RELAX, relax. Mm-hmm. What happened on Monday night is one of those games that happens in your National Football League. It just happened. It's a crazy, great league, but every once in a while, something happens. You're in the wrong place at the worst time, and I'm not sure the 1985 Bears could have won that game in that outdoor arena where they again set the decibel record on Monday night against that team whose coach was hot, whose quarterback was hot, whose running game was hot, the defense was hot. That's as good a game as you can play. Did they do anything wrong? Obviously, they didn't turn the ball over one time. So does New England have problems? They're not doing one good thing right now. There's not one thing where you can hang your helmet on it and say, we do that.
They're showing up to the game.
They show up, but I'm not even sure they really showed up mentally to that game. But everything that they're doing wrong was completely magnified and exacerbated by the home team and the home crowd. Everything went completely haywire until everybody is overreacting. And trust me, the home team this Sunday night in Foxborough will react to the overreaction because they're going to get to hear it and hear it and hear it to death. And Stephen A., I got to ask you this because you're always talking about how really the Patriots are America's team, not my Dallas Cowboys. Mm-hmm. Does any team outside of Dallas inspire more negative backlash than Tom Brady and Bill Belichick's team? Because I think they do. The negative, it's either more on their part, it's jealousy.
Yeah.
People are so jealous of those two because obviously Belichick leads the league in smug condescension, and Brady is the prettiest pretty boy going. So
that is why I say they're America's team, because unlike the Dallas Cowboys, they give you a reason to be jealous of them.
Okay.
Dallas gives you a reason to laugh at them.
Okay.
Until last week.
Or to hate them if you want to.
Laugh.
Yeah,
I prefer laugh.
Okay.
I prefer laugh.
So now let's keep this in perspective. This is for me. I picked New England to win the AFC and get to the Super Bowl and lose to Seattle in the Super Bowl. I love my pick. I love it even more than I loved it before Monday night, because this is the perfect jump start for the New England Patriots this year. We've seen them, as you pointed out.
Yeah.
They've had bad starts before, and they needed a jumping off point because Brandon Browner, and I don't know what he's got left in his tank, but he returns this week from his suspension. And if you can explain to me, as a receiver, why Kenbrell Tompkins, who had big moments last year, and Aaron Dobson, who had big moments last year, were both healthy scratches on Monday night, healthy scratches, it's bizarre to me. Something is going on there. Doghouse, problems, I don't know what it is. Maybe not on the same page with the quarterback. And Danny Amendola and Tom Brady are do not invite them right now. They're on the wrong page. There's disrespect going back and forth. They got to figure those things out, because the pieces are there to be as good as they were last year.
Which is why I justify my pick. But the other thing is, from a critical perspective, what I want to point the finger at Belichick is this. Healthy scratches, you pointed out. When you know that you have compromised your quarterback with the decision you made at the offensive line at the beginning of the season by moving Mankins to Tampa, okay? You need those healthy bodies not to be scratched, okay? You also don't need Gronkowski, even though he's not being targeted but so much, because he's working himself back into being healthy. You don't need to put him in a position where you could possibly find yourself asking more of him, or Edelman, as you pointed out, because he's no Wes Welker. The fact that Bill Belichick has been willing to do that, I blame two people for that. I blame Belichick, but also blame Tom Brady, because I think one of the things that's frustrating to a receiver, and I know nothing of Kenbrell Tompkins, I know nothing of Aaron Dobson other than what they do on the field. I don't know them personally, never met them, never talked to them, don't know their personalities or whatever. But I'm just guessing. I'm guessing that if you've compromised your offensive line, if you've compromised Tom Brady's safety as a result of that, these guys, you're also compromising his ability to get them the ball. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if down the line I were to learn that they were in Belichick's doghouse because they had the temerity to actually speak up about it.
Maybe.
And so something like that.
Explain that. Layer this for us, the whiteout situation for the Patriots.
They just don't have enough playmakers on the outside. I mean, you made a statement to Gronkowski. I mean, they're going to have to ask him to do more.
He will slowly.
I understand that he's come back off an injury, but he's lacing his cleats up, and he's walking out on the field on Sunday. He has to.
That's just not fair, Plex. That's not fair.
He has to go out and play.
I'm saying,
you can't sit there and say, okay, we're going to wait 2 or 3 weeks for Gronkowski to get his feet up.
Did you watch the highlights last year? You saw how ugly that knee injury was. Come on now, he's back on the field. I'm just saying, this is humanistic,
if he's not healthy enough to go out and make a contribution of what you expect of him, don't put him on the football field. I'm not saying that he's not healthy. Oh, he's not healthy, so we're
Hold on. I'm not saying he's not healthy enough to make a contribution. I'm saying if you take the other weapons away from him, that puts more responsibility on his shoulders, and health-wise, he might not be ready for that. That's not fair?
That is a decision that the front office made that
makes them wrong.
They have to live with.
That makes them wrong. No front office has ever been wrong about you or any other player. Front offices are wrong all the time.
They're wrong every day.
That's what I'm trying to say. That's all I'm trying to say.
Okay, so I have one final question. Yeah. How did this team, basically the same team, without Will Fork, without Mayo, without Gronkowski, and without the newly added Darrelle Revis, finish the year 12-4 last year and beat Andrew Luck in a playoff game 43-22? How'd they do that?
How'd they do it?
One thing I can always say, you look back at last year, but Belichick has always had a well-coached football team. But the other night, he just got out-coached, and they ran into a juggernaut down in Kansas City. It happened to us when we went out to San Diego back in 2005 when Eli Manning made his first appearance in San Diego, and they was just playing at a different speed than what we were playing at. It wasn't the fact that we weren't as good as those guys, but they were just playing at a different level.
All right. We asked the question, how much confidence
juggernaut.
do people have moving forward with the Patriots? And Skip says it's overreaction. Since 2000 when Belichick became the coach, they've only missed the playoffs 3 times. So perhaps it's just overreaction. Days after being called a player's coach during a pregame interview with Fox Sports, Steelers head coach Mike Tomlin said he doesn't mind the term, but that he doesn't want to be defined by it either. I refuse to be put in a box. It's my job to be what my team needs me to be. Sometimes when they couple players coach with questions about how I wear my hair or what I choose to wear on the sidelines or what type of music I listen to, then it gets kind of old and falls into that category for me. I'd like to think the manner in which I do my job, whether it's positive or negative, has very little to do with my haircut or the clothes that I wear or the type of music I listen to. And that's when I get annoyed with that line of questioning. All right. Mike Tomlin's comments about being called a player's coach. Stephen A., what do you make of it?
First of all, we all know I'm a fan of Mike Tomlin. Love him to death. This is one of the reasons why. Because a lot of times, unbeknownst to a lot of people who may not be paying attention, he says things that are incredibly profound and extend far beyond the specific incident that he's alluding to. When Mike Tomlin makes a statement like this, he's not just telling you that he's not just a player's coach. He's not just telling you that he's not ashamed or upset about being labeled as a player's coach. What he's saying is that how it's stomached and how it's interpreted by other people is what offends him. And I definitely get where he's coming from, because what he's saying he's averse to is being placed in a box and pigeonholed. And one of the things that folks, whether it's coaches from the past, Skip, you can speak to this in all your years, nearly 40 years of being a journalist. You've spoken to a number of African Americans who aspire to become coaches, players who aspire to venture beyond the playing field or the court of play. You get to a point, particularly when you are an African American male, where people try to pigeonhole you. They try to define you as being just this guy. This is all you know. This is all you could speak about or whatever. On a personal level, that's why I love doing First Take. Because before I was doing First Take, regardless of the fact that I had elevated to a general sports columnist in this position, becoming like the 21st African American to pull that off in American history, despite what I accomplished as a reporter and as a journalist, people tried to sit there and say, well, all he knows is basketball. And then all of a sudden you speak on a plethora of other issues, and then they find out that your level of knowledge far expands beyond one particular playing field. And that's the kind of thing that Mike Tomlin is speaking about, because it's the type of thing that Tony Dungy alluded to in the past, Lovie Smith alluded to in the past, Leslie Frazier alluded to in the past. The list goes on and on. I'd say you'd be very, very hard pressed to find an African American in position of influence that doesn't tell you or doesn't speak to one of the maladies of their position by saying folks try to pigeonhole you and define you as being one-dimensional. Okay. It's usually other folks that get to explore and expand their horizons and venture beyond one particular area. And I get it.
That helps me, because that gives me some context from you, because Mike Tomlin also talked about the context that is frequently attached to the term player's coach. And he suggested that there are racial and age undertones to it. He told Fox that longtime Steelers defensive coordinator Dick LeBeau isn't referred to as a player's coach because he's, quote, an old white guy. Well, that hit me wrong, because I'm not sure that's accurate. Now, from our friend Ryan Clark that we have on here, I think Ryan would consider Dick LeBeau a player's coach, because he's one of the guys, and he was a very good player. It's back in the day, back in the 60s, but he was a Pro Bowl cornerback for the Detroit Lions.
Before you go further, Mike Tomlin and people in Mike Tomlin's position isn't alluding to how a player views them. They're talking about the public at large.
Okay, that's fair. All right, but just on balance, Pete Carroll is 63 years of age. Does he qualify as an old white guy? I don't know. He doesn't act like an old white guy. But is he a player's coach? Yeah. To me, he is. And here's how I define player's coach, and please feel free in a moment to take exception to this. There's a barrier between the player and the coach. And the player's coach will break that barrier. He will cross that line occasionally into even socializing with the player. The player will feel very close to him, as if the coach is my friend. The coach will take care of the player. He will trust the player's view of the player's body. Coach, you can't go today. You're fine. You're fine. Just take a day off. Barry Switzer, that I was around in Dallas, was the ultimate player's coach, and he was, when he won the Super Bowl that year, he was 60 years of age. So I think he qualified as an old white guy. Stephen A. There was a night that he was so close with Charles Haley. Charles came down with something. Barry Switzer took antibiotics and drove them to Charles Haley's house because he was friends with the wife and the kids. That's a player's coach to me, okay? Just for the record, just for perspective here.
My response to that, and I know we're getting ready to come to you, my response to that, Skip, is that Mike Tomlin was not saying that only black coaches are labeled players coaches. Mike Tomlin was saying, alluding to anyway, based on what you just said, that it's a negative connotation when a black coach is labeled that. The other day,
as opposed to a white coach.
The other day when we were talking about Mike Tomlin and we talked about the 13 penalties for 125 yards and we spoke to a lack of discipline, therefore a lack of respect, we talked about him being a player's coach and maybe the players take that for granted, okay? And I spoke on that.
You did.
But when we talk, but Mike Tomlin is a Super Bowl champion too. And Mike Tomlin has gone to 2 Super Bowls as a head coach. Pete Carroll was never in the Super Bowl until last year. Pete Carroll won the first Super Bowl. We talk about him being a player's coach in a celebratory fashion. Dick LeBeau, the Steelers defense ain't been the steel curtain for quite a long time, and Dick LeBeau's been there. But we still talk about him being a player's coach in a very favorable fashion.
Okay.
Barry Switzer, you just brought him up at Oklahoma and then in Dallas. You talked about him being a player's coach. It was in a very favorable fashion. But when a black coach is labeled a player's coach, it's usually code for, well, you're too cool with the players, and you don't have that level of control.
Fair point.
What I would say from a player standpoint, when players and everybody on the outside, a coach is being labeled as a player's coach, from a player standpoint, it is, we have so much respect for him as a person.
Yep.
And as a coach, second, because he has that much respect for us. And we would pretty much do whatever he asks us to do because we have that much respect for him. It's not, being labeled a player's coach is not bad because we had a player's coach when I arrived in Pittsburgh in 2000, and his name was Bill Cowher. And people would always ask me, how's Bill Cowher? He's always on the sideline. He had a scowl on his face, but off of the football field, he was one of the most mildest mannered men that I ever met in my life. He was like a father figure to me basically when I got to Pittsburgh because the coach would come to you and say, how are the guys feeling today? How's the guy's body feeling? Yeah. He would take us to practice and he wouldn't run us sprints. Just everybody go out, just work hard, and everybody's going to go home. That's what we look at it from a player's coach standpoint, but not putting him in a box and saying, oh, he's a player's coach because he's nice. But maybe it's the mannerisms on the sideline, which everybody looks on the side, everybody on the outside says, oh, he's being too nice to the players. He doesn't get after the players coming in and out of the game. But Coach Cowher used to jump on guys coming in and out of the sideline, but he was still a player's coach to us.
Well, for clarity purposes, nobody's disagreeing with a word that you just said. You're absolutely on the money, 100%. But the fact of the matter is, when Mike Tomlin was addressing the issue, he wasn't talking about players. He wasn't talking about people within the football community. He's talking about outside, folks outside, and how perception ultimately becomes reality. And when we talk about perception having a detrimental effect on the reality of people, we are usually talking about it having a detrimental effect with black coaches as opposed to white coaches who are labeled players coaches. Bill Cowher, not only was he Bill Cowher, and I love me some Bill Cowher. 1 Super Bowl championship in 15 years as a coach, 2 Super Bowl appearances. There's been plenty of times that Bill Cowher came up short. He sits up there, he's celebrated, he's a golden boy amongst coaches who could have his pick of the litter in terms of multitude of jobs, as we're talking about right now, in terms of what's potentially available. One of the reasons is exactly what you said. He's a great coach, he's a great person. You understand? He's on CBS right now doing an outstanding job, I might add. But what is he doing? He's a player's coach. He's a player's person. It's celebrated. But when we talk about Mike Tomlin, we talked about Lovie Smith in Chicago, 9 years. All right, only 3 playoff appearances. People, including myself, felt that he needed to be out of there. But one of the reasons he was being labeled in a negative light was because people felt like he was a player's coach. But other coaches get celebrated who ain't black for that. So that's just the reality. And again, we're talking outside. Right. We're not talking inside.
But when you're talking people looking in from the outside, you name Tony Dungy, Lovie Smith, and Mike Tomlin. Those are three coaches that you would never see them like jumping up and down and yelling on the sideline at a player. So when people on the outside looking in, when the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Indianapolis Colts was losing games that they weren't supposed to lose, that's what the people on the outside are saying. Oh, he's a player's coach. You know, it really doesn't matter to him too much. Well, that's how they're looking at it. From
and I understand that, and I don't agree with that. But what I'm saying is that when you consider the challenges that coaches face on a week in, week out, year to year basis, and you know that history, the fact of the matter is that's working against you. So to have something added to it that even brings questions into the equation makes it even more difficult. And you can't escape that.
I stand enlightened by your point. I had not thought of it that way, and I appreciate that.
Kansas City Royal fans waited 29 years for their first taste of the postseason, and they were not disappointed. Salvador Perez singled home the winning run with 2 out in the 12th inning, capping 2 late comebacks that gave Kansas City a thrilling 9-8 victory over the A's in the American League wildcard game.
Try to describe the feeling right now.
Oh, my God. I don't know, Pedro. It's unbelievable right now. I was about to throw up till about 5 seconds ago. We never stop believing in ourselves. Nobody thinks we can do this. No one thinks we should have been this far. But this is a group that doesn't care what anybody thinks. We believe we can do this, and we showed a lot of character tonight. This team's got a lot of good things coming to them.
The Royals tied a postseason record with 7 stolen bases in the game. Kansas City will now face the Angels in the ALDS. Stephen A., your pick from last night. Your thoughts on the win?
Skip Bayless. It was one of the most exciting times I've ever had watching baseball. I mean,
I agree.
I mean, I dozed off, woke up, came back. Then I couldn't sleep. It was 4 hours, 45 minutes. I got to admit, I love these Royals, man. I mean, I love their guts from Hosmer to Kane. I mean, even the double by Kane early on to tie the score at 2-2. You know, he singled later. You look at him. You look at Hosmer. I mean, the only thing that threatened to ruin everything, I thought the game was over. I actually tweeted it was over once Brandon Moss just went berserk, hit 2 home runs last night, smacked that 3-run homer off of Ventura. I looked at Yost, this manager for the Kansas City Royals, and I said, he should be. I usually don't do that. He should be fired. I can't believe
he should have been fired on the spot.
I'm saying he should have been fired. If Kansas City had lost this game last night, he should have been fired before he got an opportunity to leave the stadium, because I could not believe that you're going to sit there. This kid is essentially a rookie. He's 21 years of age, okay? I mean, damn near out of high school, for crying out loud. I mean, and not only that, he's a starter. He didn't do any work in the bullpen. I mean, he had one performance earlier in the season, and this guy, just decides to put him in the game. And I'm like, could you not, would it really hurt you to put Herrera in just a little bit earlier? I mean, it was just such a ridiculous and an egregious decision. I thought that he almost blew this game, but it just showed me a lot of guts. Remember, they led the league with 153 stolen bases during the season. They had 7 last night because Soto, the catcher for the A's, went out in the first inning. In the first inning. And by the way, he only played 14 games this year.
But he brought out almost half his runners.
Right. But exactly, he's thrown out 9 of 17 runners. I think it was 9 of 17 he threw out this year. But my point is, he only played for you 14 games, but that's how concerned you were about Kansas City's running game, because you wanted to make sure that this dude was in the game to throw them out, because you had to keep them off the bases. Once he went down in the first inning, I said, oh, this is exactly what I was talking about. They led the league in stolen bases. They led the league in the least amount of strikeouts this season. They're going to attack. They're going to get on base. But I was just shocked when they were down 7-3, the level of guts that they showed all the way around. And this kid Finnegan comes in the game. He was spectacular. I mean, it was something special to watch. And I'm just looking at them right now. I'm just loving this team. I got to admit, if they end up winning, it's not going to bother me, because that crowd seemed to go from the football game Monday night to the stadium, the baseball stadium last night. And it was special to watch. It was special to watch. I loved every moment of it, and it was beautiful. And by the way, at some point in time, your boy Billy Bean, you really gonna have to win some postseasons.
I'm about to address.
And it's on Melvin. And it's on Melvin. I know more on Melvin than Billy Bean. But come on now, you got to win something. Go ahead. Kansas City special.
before I rant over here, and by the way, I would have made the same pick again 100 times out of 100, okay?
Understand.
I want to congratulate the Royals fans. I was there in that ballpark in 1985, the last time they were even in the playoffs when they won Game 7 of that World Series.
Yeah.
And I'm with you.
Beautiful to see George Brett there, too.
You could argue, even though this was sort of a play-in kind of a playoff game, this is about as good as it's ever been. I'm not sure you can find a better playoff game than that one.
Yeah.
I covered several of Billy Beane's teams. I got to know him very well. We did have our battles, but I love this man. And Brad Pitt played him in the motion picture called Moneyball, just for the record.
I watched it.
In my career, I have never been around a human who took losing harder than Billy Beane takes losing. Trust me on this.
It's miserable today.
This had to be as devastated as this man has ever been in his career, because he just fell to 0-7 lifetime in win-or-go-home games in the postseason. 0-7.
Yeah.
So you're right. But I must admit, when he pulled off the trade from the Boston Red Sox for John Lester, I immediately tweeted, Billy Beane just won his first World Series. Now, I love the guy, so my heart, I told you yesterday, I'm picking with my heart.
Okay.
But when you can put John Lester on top of Samardzija and what you already had there in Sonny Gray and Kazmir, I said, that's a World Series kind of rotation.
Right.
And they were obviously the hottest hitting team in baseball at that point, and they fell right in the toilet. But that's a whole, they still made the playoffs, and I thought, okay, they're going to figure it back out, and they did. Brandon Moss, right away, 2-run homer in the first inning off big game James Shields, and it's 2-0. You have staked John Lester to a 2-0 lead. And then they bounce right back in the 6th, and they give John Lester a 7-3 lead in the 6th inning. This is a man in his career who is 85-1 with a 3 or more run lead in his career. This man has the 3rd best postseason ERA in the history of baseball with pitchers with 10 or more starts. That's pretty good. 1.97 in the postseason.
No question.
He has dominated the Kansas City Royals throughout his career. He was 3-0 against this same team this year, and he's got a 7-3 lead. And he spits the bit? He coughed it up? Are you kidding me? And I do not blame Bob Melvin for sticking with him till death did them part, because I would have too. It's John Lester. And I'm now convinced John Lester's heart wasn't really in this.
Well,
his heart's still at Fenway Park. What's that?
No, I said to you yesterday, he's just a mercenary. He's just there for the season.
Well,
he's out.
Some guys are good mercenaries. Some guys just throw a uniform on them and they'll go out because it's just all about them. Like, I'm going to go pitch. I'm CC and I'm going to go do this.
With Milwaukee.
Okay, you got that. But in this case, he's a Boston Red Sox through and through his heart. And I don't think wearing green and gold last night, he viewed himself as John Lester anymore, because a 7-3 lead, I don't care what park you're in. I don't care how many bases they steal. He was dominating them until all of a sudden, the 8th inning, boom, boom, it's impossible. This cannot be happening. And Stephen A., I take nothing away from the Royals. They would not die. I've never seen anything like it. They would not die. And remember, the A's in the top of the 12th went ahead. They scored a run. They go up by 1. What was it, 8-7 at that point? And bottom 12, boom, boom, boom. They came right back again, and they win it 9-8. It's impossible what they did. God bless you, and God bless Billy Beane today.
Well, listen,
because he's in a bad place.
He's in a very bad place, and he should be, no doubt about it. You got Kane single, you got Butler single, you got Hosmer scored. All of that's true. But let's get back to the A's for a quick second. Skip Bayless, I would agree with you totally about Melvin if there wasn't recent history working against him. Billy Beane gives you John Lester, okay? Cespedes is in Boston. We understand that even though he wasn't having the greatest year, okay, bottom line is they had the #1 offense when he was there, and they dropped almost 2 runs a game when he left. But here's the point, okay? Bob Melvin, over the last 46 games, they were 16-30. Over the last 36 games, they were 12-24. That's on the manager. If Billy Beane gives you John Lester, I understand Moss had the hip problem. There's no doubt, but he showed up last night, okay? You got Donaldson and those boys. They weren't 100% healthy. I get it. But they showed up last night, and they went up against big game James Shields, and they gave you 7 runs. 7 runs. There is no reason why Bob Melvin can't figure out a way to manage himself around that. I understand that Lester is big time, but just like you just noticed it, excuse me, Skip, you noticed it. You're engaging in revisionist history. You have a license to do that because you're sitting here. Bob Melvin is supposed to see something before you and I see it. You've had these games. You've had 46 games. You've had 36 games. 16 and 30, 12 and 24. Okay. And then this team literally collapses on you. You've got an obligation as the manager. This is baseball here. This is baseball. I mean, they sitting out there eating sunflower seeds, spitting it in the field, you know, chewing on tobacco, chilling out with their shades and everything. You got plenty of time to figure out over the last couple of months what you're working with and what you're not. That's on Melvin.
If the A's had the best record in baseball on August 1st and no deal had been made and then they cratered after that, it would be on the manager. Yeah. But when you yank the cleanup hitter out from the middle of the lineup and the rest of the lineup crumbles under the pressure to live up to what's not there, then it's not. It's on the general manager.
It's on the general manager.
Hold on, y'all. Hold on. Skip, that's partially correct. But you still got to this one game playing. And the fact that you are there, you got to know what you're working with. Don't get me wrong. I understand your point if we're looking back and reflecting on a season in which the A's weren't able to get to the postseason because they couldn't run produce. But the fact is you got one game. Okay. Manage the game.
I hate to say this.
Manage the game.
Billy won't like me saying this, but I think the manager's gone now because Billy's going to look around and say, I got to do something.
And it ain't going to be Billy.
And Billy would be, and I'm saying to you, Billy would be right to do it.
ESPN.com has released their Week 5 NFL Power Rankings, and the top 3 teams remain the same with Seahawks, Bengals, and Broncos. The Ravens and Cowboys took big leaps into the top 10, with Baltimore at 7 and Dallas at 10, folks. Dallas at 10.
Wait, Dallas?
Dallas is at 10. I don't know. I've been here about 2 years. Has Dallas ever been at 10? No. Okay. I don't think so. Meanwhile, the other America's team dropped to 16. That's the Patriots after their blowout loss to the Chiefs. We take a look at those rankings as you do at home. Plaxico Burris back here hanging out with us. We appreciate it. Stephen A., I'll give it to you first. Issue with the rankings?
Yeah. I think Cincinnati should be atop the power rankings right now. It's just week 3. We're only going by, I'm sorry, it's week 4, but they didn't play last week. But just 3 games into this season, I do understand that nobody's sitting here saying they're going to win the Super Bowl or anything like that. I'm certainly not going that far. But power rankings are something that takes place week to week. And I'm of the belief that the Cincinnati Bengals right now deserve to be atop the rankings. They are undefeated. They have the #1 defense in the league in terms of points allowed. They get after it. They're athletic. They can cover. They can tackle. They play a physical brand of football. And offensively, they appear to be incredibly disciplined. You got A.J. Green and Sanu that's being primary targets as wideouts for Andy Dalton, who's completing about 65% of his passes, by the way. But you also have Giovanni Bernard, who's being effective, not just in the running game, but he's got 12 receptions on the year as well. So the combination of that level of balance, along with the fact that they play defense, along with the fact that they are physical and that they get after it, and they're undefeated. And I'm looking at the fact that 2 of their 3 victories, even though I don't really, the third one was against Tennessee, which was an easy one, 33-7. That was a walk in the park for them. But the first 2 victories, the Baltimore Ravens beating them in the season opener, beating Atlanta after Atlanta had beaten New Orleans and then smacking them around 24-10. I'm going to go with them. I'm not saying they're better than Seattle. I'm not saying they're better than Denver. But based on what we've seen thus far in terms of power rankings, I would say Cincinnati deserves to be atop the field.
Before you go, I just have one issue with your issue. And this is probably way over my head. My tiny brain can't quite comprehend.
Oh, boy.
But you just raved about the team that should be #1 in the power rankings. Yet just yesterday on this show, you said that the team now ranks 16th in the power rankings, the New England Patriots, are going to beat the team that should be #1 on Sunday night in Foxborough. And that's sort of, that just blows all my circuits.
Well, you can act like you're confused all you want to, or you may very well be confused.
I'm confused.
But I'm very clear. Go ahead and be confused. Go ahead and be confused. That just means that y'all need to wax your ears and listen clearly. The fact is that I have repeatedly said the power rankings are different. I take that week to week. Week to week, based on what you've done right now. who would I say number one team right now?
So
that doesn't
next
mean
week, if in fact your prediction is correct, then next week's power rankings should be New England number 1 and Cincinnati 16.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Are there power rankings that come out every week?
Yes.
Then why do they come out every week?
I don't know.
I'm sorry.
So we can talk about
I thought power rankings come out every week, so from week to week, we can sit there and say, this is how a team looks this week.
Yeah, the power rankings are based on a week-to-week basis.
That's what I'm saying.
I base my power rankings on the team, personnel, and how good I think they are. But I don't think Cincinnati Bengals are number 2 team.
Well, allow me to say this.
I don't think
I am a soap opera fan.
Right.
All right. I watch General Hospital religiously.
We know.
I used to.
I know that no matter what, Sonny Corinthos is going to live and he's going to be a star on the show. But that doesn't mean that day to day, week to week, there's a storyline that doesn't come with it. So this is the storyline. Now, in the end, I'm thinking New England's going to be in the Super Bowl. In the end, I'm thinking Denver and New England's going to be in the AFC Championship game.
Yeah,
it doesn't mean that I ignore what's going on in week 3 and live it on that.
What's your issue with the rankings?
My issue with the rankings is that, I think the San Diego Chargers are a lot better football team than a lot of people are giving them credit for.
Okay.
I give them credit.
He gives them credit.
Phillip Rivers is having a great year. Mm-hmm. Antonio Gates looks to be healthy. So when you have a healthy Antonio Gates in that offense, they can pretty much,
What about their running game?
Running game's not really good.
Okay.
But I do believe that they are the best team in the AFC West.
I would like to. That's what I said before the year. But remember, they have lost Ryan Matthews at least for a while, and I'm afraid Danny Woodhead's gone for the year. And they had both of them in their upset win over Seattle.
That's always kind of been the MO with the San Diego Chargers, is that they are never physical enough on offense and on defense. That's kind of one of the things that's really plagued them, in the playoffs, and Phillip Rivers really making that leap is that, they're not really a grimy football team when it comes to football and on defense and offense.
But I do agree. Phillip Rivers might be playing the best quarterback in the NFL right now. If we're just doing right now.
So now we're allowed to say right now.
Well,
now we're allowed to say right now.
No, I'm following your rule.
don't want to make a
That's your rule.
Now we're allowed to say
not my rule. It's your rule.
You're saying right now.
Right now.
Time out.
Right
Dallas
now.
is
Well,
the
that's
hot
what you
topic
told
for
me.
us. Number 10. They belong to be there?
I got Dallas right where they're ranked at number 10.
Thank you.
Really?
How about them Cowboys?
What are you thinking about them Cowboys?
LaMarco Murray is playing some good football right now. But at the same time, what I say, I still leave them at number 10 because Tony Romo is still the quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, let's be honest.
That's a shot.
He's still the quarterback.
He had a better week than Brady.
Yeah, he had a better week than Brady, but, Tony Romo always find a way to lose a football game. Sad as it may sound, I mean, he does. That's kind of his kind of his reputation.
But now,
because this is what we're talking about.
Right now.
At this moment,
right
he's
now.
better than Brady.
How about them Cowboys?
All right.
Is that it? You got anybody else?
Well, Indianapolis Colts. I got them ranked number 7.
All right.
7?
Yeah, they're better than 11. They're definitely better than 11.
They're better than the Dallas Cowboys?
Absolutely.
Hold on just a second. Let me look here.
I would take the Indianapolis Colts over the Dallas Cowboys any day of the week.
Okay, so I'm looking at Indianapolis' results. So they open the year at Denver. They basically get blown out by halftime.
At Denver, season opener.
Okay, they come back to 31-24, but they are never really in the football game. Then they play Philadelphia at home, and they lose 30-27. Philly does the Jekyll Hyde thing, but still, Philly is eminently torchable on defense. They give up huge chunks of yardage every game, and they seem to overcome it until finally they couldn't catch up to it in San Francisco. But those are their 2 losses, and their 2 huge wins that have vaulted them on Plax's list all the way up to number 7 are over Jacksonville, albeit in Jacksonville, and then a crumbling Tennessee at home that they annihilated 41-17. On the strength of 2-2, how can they be better than Cowboys 3-1 with the huge win on Sunday night over New Orleans?
Because you just have to look at what the reputation of the Dallas Cowboys is.
So you're just going on ancient history.
I'm not going off ancient history. No, I'm looking at them on a week-to-week basis. Yeah, they had two good weeks in a row. LaMarcus Murray has started the season off with 3 100-yard games. But, it's going to come down to the Dallas Cowboys and the Philadelphia Eagles in that division. And, I don't think that the Dallas Cowboys, are better than the Philadelphia Eagles.
So project Cowboys just off the top of your head. Will they finish 8-8 again, as they always seem to do?
I give the Cowboys 9-7.
9-7. Okay.
That's being generous.
And
I don't have the San Francisco 49ers in my top 10.
I'm with you on that.
You got them winning the NFC East. Eagles? What do you have?
Eagles.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. I don't have really many issues with this list because Seattle is in a league of its own and should be on top of the power rankings. Right now, first week of the season or the 16th week of the season, they will be number one in my power rankings, I'm pretty sure. The Dallas Cowboys should be the 10th ranked team in this country at this point, which is phenomenal to me, but they have earned the 10th spot. And all I have to say is, I know we're just doing right now, but if you had told me a week ago, or even certainly 2 weeks ago, that the Patriots would be 16th and the Saints would be 21st, I would laugh out loud at that. Because trust me, when all is said and done, neither team will be out of the top 10 to me. Patriots or Saints.
Okay.
Well, you know that. I mean, you picked the Saints to go to the Super Bowl. I'm trying to defend your pick. I'm trying to make you feel better.
He gave up on that the other day.
You cannot sit there and bring up the Saints on me when I've already put a bag over my head and said the Aints.
He went out on them.
You can't do that.
Yeah, he's done.
You can't do that.
I still think they're going to win their division.
That's, still the only quality win this year by the Dallas Cowboys was the New Orleans Saints. So,
all right.
We'll see how the rest of the
pretty
season
quality.
By the way, Nelly keeps texting me and reminding me that the New England Patriots will not even make the playoffs.
Kobe Bryant said he felt like himself after his first team practice in about 10 months as the Lakers opened training camp on Tuesday. Bryant played in only 6 games last year while recovering from a torn Achilles and then suffered a fracture in his left knee that ended his season. New head coach Byron Scott says that despite Kobe's age and injury concerns, he expects big things from his superstar. Here's the quote. "I'm expecting him to play 82 games and play well. To be honest with you, he's a guy who's going to probably average 23, 24 points per game. Our biggest thing is making sure he stays healthy and keeping his minutes to a minimum where he can play those 82 games. Wow, 82 games. This is it 18th, 19th year in this league? 19. We're putting Kobe Bryant on the hook. Do you agree with Byron Scott's expectations for Kobe, Stephen A?
I don't know if he'll play all 82 games, but I think that he'll play more than 70, and I do think that Kobe will average about 23 to 24 again. I think he'll do it with his eyes closed. I think it'll be that simple for him. He's the Black Mamba. He's Kobe Bryant, and his game is not going to fade, but so much. You have to keep in mind that when you're a talent whose game is predicated on athleticism, there's going to be an extreme level of dissipation that kicks in. If it's based on athleticism, if it's based on speed, like an Allen Iverson or somebody like that, then that's different. But with Kobe, similar to MJ, your game evolved from the perspective of, I'm going to transition to being a perimeter shooter. That's what he's emerged into. And as a result, because of his tremendous footwork, how fundamentally sound he is, his knowledge about the game of basketball and his ability to get his shot off, combine that with the fact that he is a perimeter shooter now, I definitely think that it's something that Kobe Bryant is going to do with relative ease. The other thing that I'd like to keep in mind is that doesn't mean that the Lakers are going to be formidable. You can pump your brakes on it.
Well, I already know.
They're going to be a team. They're going to be a team that could challenge for a playoff spot. But it's not like they're going to win a championship or anything like that. But the one thing that I will show Kobe his due deference and respect to is this. He's entering his 19th season. Since Kobe arrived in 1996, the Lakers have had one losing season with him. And that is the year that they traded Shaquille O'Neal. 2004, 2005, they went 34-48. Outside of that, last year don't even count because he only played like 6 games because he was injured. So that means in 18 years, Kobe Bryant has had one losing season, and that is the year they lost Shaquille O'Neal. I think he's going to be fine.
Lakers play 82 games. What do you think? 50? They win 50? 30? How many games they win?
I said they win 50. I said they
really?
win 50. But hey, you know what? If I'm Kobe Bryant, and Kobe Bryant comes out and says, I felt like myself. If I'm Kobe Bryant, I wouldn't want to feel like anybody else. I'm Kobe Bryant. But for the coach to come out and say he's going to play all 82 games like Stephen A. said, I don't think he's going to play all 82 games. If he does, he'll maybe play 30 minutes a game.
Yeah.
And, Kobe is one of the most, fierce competitors of our generation. If he goes out and averages 23 and 23 points, I don't think anybody would be surprised because he's that much of a competitor. But, for him to go out and play 82 games is kind of a stretch, but you never know what you're going to get out of him. He may pull off an Adrian Peterson for all we know.
He might.
So,
that's a tough ask.
You never know. It's Kobe Bryant. I listened to him in some of his interviews. He says, he has to prove it to himself first. Us as athletes, as we get older and we become veterans, it's a little bit of doubt in the back of your mind when you say you have to prove it to yourself because, you have to prove it to yourself first to make everybody else believe it. Okay. And I think that's what he's telling himself, can I get back to being my old self? If I can't get back to being my old self, how close can I get to being the Kobe Bryant that everybody knows?
So, Stephen A., if Kobe averages 30 minutes a game, can he get up 30 shots a game?
Oh, he can definitely get up 30.
You already know that.
He won't do that, but he won't average 30 minutes a game.
You don't think so?
More than that.
Oh, boy, you think more than that?
30 shots a game.
You don't think Byron Scott will turn into Byron Popovich and just say no?
I don't think Kobe will average 40 minutes a game. I don't think he'll average 45 minutes a game in a month of April like he did for Mike D'Antoni when he injured his Achilles. But I do believe he'll average between 33 and 35 minutes a game.
I did think it was interesting, even though it was the first practice of the year, but Byron said after the practice that he shut down Kobe like 3/4 through practice and said, "You're done. That's enough." And so is that shades of things to come? Or you don't think
Byron Scott's going to do that because he's going to send a message that he's the coach, he's in control, and he's looking out for Kobe's best interest because he has a relationship that's long-standing with Kobe.
Yep.
Kobe does have a level of trust for him.
He does.
That he does not for others in terms of somebody looking out for his best interest. And I don't think Byron Scott is going to bench him because he's going to say, "You're old, you're unproductive, and I need you to sit on the bench." He's going to be benching him because he's going to say, "Look, we're making a run, and we're trying to do some things, and I don't need you worn out come March, April, May." That's what Byron Scott is doing, and I think because
how
that's
did the eventual champion San Antonio Spurs make it through last regular season without having one player, first time in the history of basketball, not one player averaged 30 minutes a game?
Because they had an abundance of guys who could step on the floor and produce even when you were on the bench.
Why did Tim Duncan and Tony Parker say, "I'm fine with that"? Why didn't they say, "Pop, I'm staying in the game.
Because
I want to play 35 minutes again"?
Because they knew the end game.
So you don't think that could be the end game here with this team?
Well, I mean, I think that it could play a factor. I mean, Kobe's not going to want to sit on the bench if the Lakers are stinking up the joint and he knows he can make a difference.
I think they're going to be better than you think they're going to be.
That's what I'm saying. That's my point.
Yeah,
I think they are going to be decent.
Okay. I definitely think he can average 24 points a game.
Easy.
2 years ago, in his last full season, he averaged 27.3. Again, he's 2 years older. And as you well know, when you hit 36, things start creeping into the back of your mind. But just a quick thought, because you know this man so well. I don't know him, but I know him from a distance, and I've studied him from a distance. I've never heard a superstar player be more willing day after day to put himself on the couch the way Kobe does. It's every day. It's Sage Steele courtside. He's great with you. Whoever, talk shows, he will just pour his heart out. He leads the NBA all time in introspection, looking inside himself. Well, he does. I've never seen anything like it because MJ would never do this. It would be rare. Maybe with Ahmad Rashad, he would give you a little bit of what's in his heart. But MJ, very uncomfortable while he was playing, talking about the real MJ. And Kobe just gushes about what's going on. I'm thinking this. I'm feeling this. I've never heard anything like it before.
Kobe's different in this respect. Kobe will put himself on a couch or come across as if he's doing so. But it's primarily to provoke and incite others to question him. And then he will use those questions as fuel to quiet the doubters. Michael Jordan didn't do that, but the league was different then. We weren't as PC in the past as we are now. And professional athletes were more prone to incite one another unapologetically. They talked trash. They didn't hear the coaches as much talking about refraining from bulletin board material and all of this other stuff. Today, they live off of that. I mean, I'm surprised. I'm surprised people are not, called upon to go and live up in a monastery for a month before the season begins, for crying out loud. I mean, this is how ridiculous it gets in today's society. Back then, you had players and coaches talk. I mean, think about this. You had Jeff Van Gundy. There was supposedly some rivalry between Jeff Van Gundy and Michael Jordan. Made up, real or otherwise, the fact is Michael Jordan will drop 30 or 40 on the Knicks and then walk by and say something smart to Jeff Van Gundy, and Jeff Van Gundy just held his head up and kept warm. He sat there and called Phil Jackson Big Chief Triangle, for crying out loud. You saw stuff like that going on. You never see that now.
All right, so you say the Lakers will be better?
I think they're being a little underrated.
Okay,
I need to see them play a few games.
What do you give them? What do you give them?
I don't know yet. I will be happy to do that as we get to game number one.
Okay.
But, the big thing is a healthy Kobe Bryant.
Yep.
Now, if you don't have a healthy Kobe Bryant, then...
Sure.
Well, Carlos Boozer and I spoke the other day, and one of the things that I said to him is, because I love some Carlos Boozer, but in Chicago, too many damn jump shots. This man was a man-child, first in Cleveland. As a matter of fact, they might have gave San Antonio a run back in 2007 if Boozer had stayed there instead of going to Utah. And I don't blame him for going to Utah because they offered him $27 more million. But what I'm saying is, the Carlos Boozer that was in Cleveland, started out his career in Cleveland, and then went to Utah, and with Deron Williams, guided Utah to the playoffs. That was a man-child in the post. He goes to Chicago and shooting a bunch of elbow jump shots. I'm saying if the Lakers are going to be formidable, somebody's got to be a man in the post. You see them hands. You see how rock solid Carlos Boozer's body is, how much of a man he could be in that post. He needs to go back down low doing that if the Lakers are going to have any success.
ESPN Radio.
With the action on the court, the diamond, or the gridiron.
Comes alive.
The NBA.
The San Antonio Spurs are the world champions.
Major League Baseball.
The Boston Red Sox have won the World Series.
The new college football playoff.
The Seminoles have completed the perfect season.
Your home for the best in sports play-by-play.
ESPN Radio.
Michael Phelps was arrested and charged with a DUI and other charges early Tuesday morning. Phelps was driving 84 miles per hour inside the Fort McHenry Tunnel on Interstate 95 in Baltimore. The Maryland Transportation Authority said that the speed limit in the tunnel was 45 miles per hour. Phelps was also charged with excessive speed and crossing double-lane lines. The swimmer has been charged with DUI previously. You may remember in November 2004, he was stopped by state troopers in Salisbury, Maryland, after failing to stop for a stop sign. In a statement posted on his Facebook page, Phelps said that, quote, he's deeply sorry for everyone he let down. Skip Bayless, what's your reaction to the latest DUI that Phelps got?
Stephen A. Smith, all I know for sure is it's time for people in this country to quit giving a pass to Michael Phelps just because he's an 18-time gold medalist and an Olympic golden boy. I'm sick and tired of hearing about this. I'm obviously even more sick and tired of drunk driving in this country, which seems to become a greater and greater problem. And obviously, it's something dear to my heart. My mom nearly killed herself driving drunk, and God help us all, she didn't kill anyone else. And God help us all that in this latest incident involving Michael Phelps, reportedly no one was hurt. So I hope no one was hurt. Hope he's not hurt, because he was merely speeding, going 84 in a 45 through a tunnel with blood level alcohol nearly twice the legal limit. So back in 2004, when Michael Phelps was 19 years of age, he also had a DUI. And he pled out of it, 18 months of probation. He's a kid. Kids do these things, no big deal. Then we had the picture of him in 2009 sucking a bong at a college party in South Carolina. USA Swimming suspended him for 3 months, but hey, it's okay because he's just a kid and he's actually retiring from swimming at that point, or so we thought. Now he's back competing in swimming, and he's been busted again, 84 in a 45, twice the legal limit. And I don't know what his plans are. I assume going toward 2016, he's aiming toward the Olympic team again. I don't know what their rules are. I don't care about their rules. All I know for sure is that he still does ads for Subway and Under Armour and Visa. And I for one, I don't want to see him on my TV anymore because I've had enough of him. It's time for people to step back and say, this is outrageous behavior. If he has a problem, he needs to go get help for his problem. But it's time for people to quit idolizing Michael Phelps as some kind of Olympic icon. And you want to talk about fortunate? I'm not that into swimming. I'm not sure that many people in this country are that into swimming. But we are all into those who compete for the United States of America at the Olympics. So because of that, he became regal status in this country, and I, for one, am sick and tired of people looking the other way while he drives drunk.
You left out one very, very important thing in your argument. I'm actually disappointed that you didn't bring this up. Michael Phelps should be in jail. Michael Phelps should be behind bars. I don't care if it's for a few hours or a few days. Let him spend some time behind bars, locked up for about a week or so. Let's see how he feels.
I'm not opposed to that.
The Fort McHenry Tunnel on Interstate 95 is a place that I drive through at least once a month. I am telling you right now, we are lucky that we're not hearing that somebody wasn't killed.
Yep.
84 through a 45 mile per hour. I go through the Fort McHenry Tunnel all the time. And I am telling you, 84 in a 45 and nobody was hurt, this man is lucky. Now, we've been on this show lamenting a lot of ills in our society.
Sure.
Okay? In this nation, what's one of the things we lament most of all? Drunk driving. People getting killed from it. This man, this is the second time that we know of. And if you remember, when he got called to the carpet for it, first charge was in 2004, and I understand that he was young there, on the eastern shore of Maryland. He received 18 months probation, $250 fine. Also was required to deliver a presentation on alcohol awareness to students at 3 high schools. Okay? Now we look at it, and we're seeing guys like this, whoever this guy is, who's a volunteer assistant at the University of Southern Cal, Coach Urbanchek or whatever, however you pronounce his name. And he's talking about how he was going to write a letter in support of Michael. He said, I wrote Michael, we'll get over this one too. Regardless of what anyone says, you're a good guy. What does being a good guy have to do with anything?
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with that. I'm quite sure Michael Phelps is a good guy. I'm quite sure he's a very nice guy. I'm quite sure that his heart obviously is in the right place, that he means no ill will towards anybody else or anything like that. But that doesn't have anything to do with the fact that you're drunk and you decide to get behind the wheel of a car and endanger not just yourself but the lives of other people. And to me, that resonates. And the reason why it also resonates, Skip Bayless, is because if we're going to get on professional athletes representing the brand, representing the brand, what do you say about somebody who's representing the United States of America? This is Olympic competition. You understand? Olympic competition. You retired after the 2012 Olympics in London before ultimately coming back and winning 3 gold medals just a couple of months ago.
Yep.
But the point that I'm trying to make is that shouldn't there be even more of an onus, even more of a responsibility on your shoulders if you are representing the red, white, and blue as opposed to the NBA or the NFL or Major League Baseball or the National Hockey League? This is Olympic competition, which means that while you've got the league like the NBA, which has successfully globalized its brand, the NFL with games in London trying to globalize its brand, the baseball wishing they could do so as well, you have an individual who is a walking global icon.
Yes.
Yep.
So how come the onus and the responsibility placed on his shoulders isn't far greater?
Stephen A., you bring up a really good point. What is it about one Michael Phelps where we decide to give him a pass, but yet we hold other athletes accountable? And I'm not saying we, but I meant as a society.
It's hard to say.
Like MAD. Where's MAD right now? Mothers Against Drunk Driving. Are they upset?
Good question.
I hope we hear from them
I hope
shortly.
we hear from them. Are they upset about Michael Phelps as others are about other issues?
It's a good point. Here's the bottom line. MAD and organizations that are advocates against drunk driving and drunk drivers, they should be up in arms and they should put just as much pressure on advertisers and sponsors, more so than ever before, because you can't have something like this. And nobody's saying, again, Michael Phelps is a bad guy. But your behavior was so reckless and so irresponsible and so life-endangering that it cannot go unspoken about and it cannot go ignored. You have to sit there and call this man to the carpet, not just by putting his name in the paper, not just by sitting there and saying this is what he did.
Yep.
As far as I'm concerned, the man should be behind bars at least for a couple of days.
Yep.
Okay? And oh, by the way, all of his sponsorships should be stripped immediately.
We've seen it happen to everyone else. Why not him?
Why not him?
And
right?
obviously, thousands and thousands of anonymous people drive drunk, unknown people. But there's something about the entitlement that he must feel, the arrogance he must feel, because he's Michael Phelps and nobody else is. I can do this.
I'm not going to accuse him of that, Skip, because he may very well not be thinking at all. He may need to be compelled to think significantly more, because in the end, again, you are endangering other people's lives. I'm telling you, I go through that tunnel all the time.
Yeah.
He could have killed somebody.
In a recent interview with USA Today Sports, Kevin Durant was asked about the Oklahoman using a headline, Mr. Unreliable, after he struggled in a playoff loss to the Grizzlies last season. Durant says he was offended by the criticism. What I heard was that people would talk about me and say that I don't have that killer dog in me like a Kobe Bryant or who else, like Mike Jordan. And those guys have. But I'm like, I wouldn't be able to survive this long in this league doing that stuff that I do at an elite level if I didn't have it. I wouldn't be able to do it for 7 straight years if I didn't have that you know? And sometimes that may not equate to wins or championships every year, but I feel as though I'm always consistent with what I do. I put in the work. We're talking about killer instinct. Does KD have it? Stephen A.
To some degree, yes, but I find his comments to be either not completely forthcoming, Skip, or not really understanding what's being said about him. First of all, what Kevin Durant needs to understand is that this dude is a superstar. At 6'11", with that handle and that range and that marksmanship, there has been no one in history like him. The closest thing we've seen to it is Iceman George Gervin, okay? But he's that kind of player. Kevin Durant has averaged at least 25 points a game since his rookie year. The dude has averaged at least 28 points over the last 4 years. He shoots 50% from the field the last 2 years. He shoots 40% from 3. He is as lethal as it comes. The problem is that level of greatness is what makes people question the other things that are missing about you, because those very, very few things that are missing are flagrant. They're very obvious and conspicuous because it seems to be the only thing holding you back. And ultimately what they're really, really saying is Russell Westbrook is your teammate and you don't mind deferring to Russell Westbrook from time to time. And that's a subject he simply has refused to tackle head on throughout the years. He'll tell you he loves his brother. He'll tell you he's got his back. It was a very heartfelt words that he spoke about Russell Westbrook when he accepted the MVP, and you can see it touched Russell Westbrook as well as should. They're both great. But no matter how great Russell Westbrook is, and he is great, the bottom line is he ain't KD. There's only one KD, and it's Kevin Durant. He's a freak of nature.
Just on ability.
Just on ability alone. Yeah. He's a freak of nature. So when he's talking about, well, people think that I lack the killer instincts, it's not that Kevin Durant won't try to take over a game. It's not that he won't try to take over. It's not that he won't go out there and just slay you. The problem is if somebody else wanted to infiltrate the proceedings, let's say a Russell Westbrook, Kevin Durant will say, sure. Why not? As opposed to MJ or Kobe, who would look at you like, have you lost your damn mind? You need to fall back right now.
That's exactly right.
And that's the subject at hand. Yeah. It's not what Oklahoma, what the newspaper did was disrespectful.
Right.
Sure.
That was beyond the pale. What they did was disrespectful, and the sports editor, to his credit, apologized for that. Whatever. It wasn't the newspaper. It was some copy editor there that made that mistake. It happens. But but if you want to point to that being disrespectful, sure. But what other people are saying is not disrespectful at all to Kevin Durant. It's actually a tribute to the level of greatness we know he has inside of him.
And by the way, he did win the MVP last year.
He did.
Which he deserved.
When did I, so to speak, turn on Kevin Durant? When did I lose some respect for him for the first time
When they lost the playoff series against Memphis.
Yeah.
And he had to play without Russell Westbrook.
Russell Westbrook, and I got to see it firsthand, and I was rooting for him. I obviously picked him to win the series, and they won the first game at home, and they lost 4 straight games. And I don't want to harp on this or beat it to death, but without giving you the numbers, which I've dredged up about 49 times on the show, but late and close, Kevin Durant was not very good in those games. All the clutch shooting,
bad series.
But he had 4 straight bad games. I really thought he was better than that. He proved last year he's great enough and gifted enough to win the MVP.
Sure.
But you hit on my point. What is glaring about this discussion is that Kevin plays with Russell. And Stephen A., that even though Kevin is more gifted than Russell is, but Russell's very gifted, but he's longer, bigger, got the more range. We know all that. But Russell Westbrook, to me, is made of a little tougher stuff than Kevin is. That's no disrespect to Kevin, because there's not much like Russell Westbrook in this league right now, because Kevin has a little doubt in him, while Russell has no doubt in his psyche, almost to a fault. What's that?
A little crazy.
Yeah, well, but it's good,
good crazy.
Yeah. Russell, look, Kevin Durant, and I respect this about him, he's a deep thinker. He puts himself on the couch, sometimes to a fault. Kobe doesn't do it to a fault. Like you said, there might be ulterior motives to Kobe, trying to provoke reactions that he can use as fuel for him. You know, okay, that's like an MJ tactic.
Kobe's an assassin.
Yeah, okay, he's an assassin. Well, we've never doubted that. I've never had any doubts that he's the closest to Jordan in psyche, in killer dog, if we can use Kevin's quote, that we may ever see. But in this case, Kevin thinks a lot about who am I, and he let Nike do the not nice Kevin, the whole promotion with the shoes, because he wanted people to say, oh, he's not a nice guy. And then all of a sudden he was a league leader in technical fouls. That makes him a tough guy.
Yeah.
Not really, but Russell is good crazy. Russell doesn't think about anything except basketball, basket, you're in my way, get out of my way, I'm going to sky over you and dunk on you. That's Russell Westbrook's. He has a killer instinct and mentality that I don't always see in Kevin Durant. And because they are teammates, 1A and 1B, that it's glaring because you can see it on a nightly basis. Here he is and here he is. And this is a fascinating year because Kevin's entering his 8th season and Russell his 7th. So I think it's about time to ask, can they win together? Are they a good match? Is this the year they break through?
It's a good question, but I think it's unfair to just limit it to those two. There's a coach named Scott Brooks.
Okay, that's fair.
That has to be put into the equation. Yeah. I like Scott Brooks, genuinely, and I think he's a good coach. And I don't think you can argue with his success and the accomplishments, their winning record, the culture that exists there with him and Sam Presti as the GM, the success they've enjoyed, etc., even though it's devoid of a championship. But there have been many instances where people have looked at Scott Brooks and said he could have done better. He's gotten out-coached or whatever. Now, obviously, it's against Greg Popovich. And, one time they beat Greg Popovich, so I don't want to hear that Scott Brooks
They didn't just beat him. They ran him off the floor.
I don't want to hear that Scott Brooks can't coach. That's not fair to that man. But coaches, it's not just about X's and O's. It's about that psychological management. And because Russell Westbrook is that natural rough rider,
he is.
You have to understand that the more we ask of Kevin Durant to step up, the more we're asking of Kevin Durant to deal with that alpha dog that is Russell Westbrook.
I agree.
And if you're asking that of Kevin Durant, then you're not asking it enough of Scott Brooks.
How can he deal with the alpha dog? I don't think Russell is coachable. And I'm not saying that in a terrible way.
I think he is. I think he is, because I think that Russell Westbrook gets a bad rap because he's not selfish. He's just a winner. He's a competitor.
He is.
And he's not just about winning basketball games. He's about beating you in his individual matchup. And so what happens is, yes, it's a requirement for Kevin Durant to step in and be somewhat more assertive in that regard. But it's also the job of the coach. Scott Brooks was a point guard on this level. Maurice Cheeks was his assistant coach. He was a point guard. Look.
And you know what? I think they both threw up their hands on Russell.
Well, then that's their fault, because that's not right to Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant's got enough responsibility being on the court, having to be the superstar that he is. He has to play alongside and on the court with Russell Westbrook. I'm not saying he doesn't have to do anything, because you've got to massage that a little bit. I wouldn't change Russell Westbrook for anything in the world. Let him be him. But the flip side to it is that Scott Brooks has to step up, and Scott Brooks is always very celebratory and very complimentary of Russell Westbrook, as he should be. But at the same time, there's nothing wrong with reeling him in. And in all my years of watching the Oklahoma City Thunder play, I'm talking about during the game, don't know what, I hear about things that happen behind the scenes, obviously, but watching them play on the court, I've never really seen Scott Brooks reel him in, and that's a problem.
Wizards guard Bradley Beal made news earlier this week when he claimed he and John Wall were undoubtedly the best backcourt in the NBA. Cavaliers guard Dion Waiters says, "Not so fast, my friend." That's nonsense. Bill's supposed to say that, but I know deep down he's not messing with me and Kai. I think me and Kai are the best backcourt, young backcourt. That's all. Stephen A. Settle this for us. Best backcourt.
Well, first things first, Dion Waiters needs to be drug tested.
Okay.
Not just for saying what he said, but also feeling the need to articulate it for public consumption, particularly considering the fact that LeBron is going to be there, and with LeBron and with Love and with Kyrie Irving, he'll be lucky to get enough shots to validate how good he is.
That's a good point.
So let's keep that in mind. And I say that I'm just
affectionately,
because I do like Dion Waiters, meaning as a player. I do think he's talented, and I do think that he doesn't get enough shine. But pump the brakes just a little bit. Bradley Beal and John Wall are no joke. We understand. Bradley Beal reminds me a lot, Skip, of Allen Houston back in his day. John Wall is just electric, bit erratic at times, but very electric. But they don't need to be speaking too loudly either, considering the fact that they lost all 3 home games in their playoff series against the Indiana Pacers. Not only did you lose in the playoff series, you lost all 3 home games. I mean, and by the way, one of those games was one of the most epically bad playoff games I've ever seen. It was horrific offensively. With that being said, this is the reason why this subject doesn't remotely interest me. I don't think it's even close. Steph Curry, Klay Thompson are the best backcourt in the NBA. It is unquestionably the best. They are skilled. They are marksmen. They are sharpshooters. Steph Curry, he's my favorite player to watch. He can boogie on anybody and pull up from 30. It's been a while since I said that, Skip, but pull up from 30. I'll be saying that a lot this year, because that is what this brother does. Steph Curry is special. And Klay Thompson is no joke either. And when you consider the fact that Klay Thompson, he is underrated, Skip, from this perspective. He's a legit 6'6", 6'7". He can guard a 1, a 2, or a 3. Yeah. He can also cause matchup problems for a 1, or 2, or a 3. This dude can pull up from 3. He's got a mid-range game. He can take it to the hole. He loves to guard and defend. I love his upside, because the best is yet to come from Klay Thompson, and we have already seen what Steph Curry is capable of. There is no question in my mind when you are talking about backcourt, unless LeBron James is suddenly playing the 2 position or the 1. Okay, you want to put somebody alongside him, or KD is playing the 2 or the 1, and you want to put somebody alongside him. Yep. In terms of backcourt, the best in the NBA resides in Golden State. Okay. Oakland, California. All right. Steph Curry, Klay Thompson.
Fair enough. Back to the question. Do you remember when Josh Gordon... You did answer the question.
You did.
I'm going to start back to Dion Waiters and Kyrie, or Kai as he calls him. Josh Gordon came, sat right here, talked about the rift between those two as alpha males fighting for the spotlight, and he said that Dion is his neighbor in Cleveland, and it caused a big stir. But there's irony here, because these two have had a hard time getting along in the first place. But I will tell you this. If we're just doing those two versus Wall and Beal, just in a vacuum, let's just say, because I don't even know how much Dion's going to get to play this year, but let's just say in a vacuum, they're a starting backcourt versus Beal and Wall.
Sure.
I'm taking Kai and Deon. I'm taking him over those other two. Because you want to talk about, we just talked about, do you have killer dog in you? Deon Waiters has killer dog in him. He has an NBA body. He can play both ends of the floor. I like him a lot as a player, and I love Kyrie. Kyrie was we just talked about it. He was MVP of the last All-Star game, MVP of the FIBA World Cup.
Kyrie's big time, man.
Big time. Okay, so I'm sorry. He's right about what he said versus those two kids in Washington. They're still kids to me.
Right.
Okay, I'm with you that if we're talking, remember, he threw a word in late, Deon did, young backcourts. He didn't say backcourts, period. This is just me, and I'm going to have to defend my guys on this one. If we're just talking young or old backcourts, for my money, if the money's on the table, give me Tony Parker and Manu Ginobili right now today, and I'll take you on anywhere. I'll take that backcourt over Steph and Clay. Because 2 years in the playoffs, 2 years ago, go check what happened when those two played those two in, what was it, a 6-game series?
Yeah, but I love how you ignore the fact that Manu Ginobili and Tony Parker, they've got just some dude named Tim Duncan laying in the area.
Don't care.
You know what I'm saying?
Don't care.
He's just laying back there.
Offense, defense.
And by the way, they got a system that they've been playing in for a decade. They got
those
Greg
two
Popovich
guards,
as a coach.
Those two guards took apart those two Golden State guards.
Listen, I know they can play.
Apart.
I know they can play.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, nobody's saying that Steph Curry is some elite defender here, because we know that he's not.
Thank you.
But it's
you just said they're the best backcourt. I said I'm taking exception.
Talent-wise, they are the best backcourt.
I don't care about talent. I care about performance.
Well, again, you got to take performance into consideration while considering the coaches, the system, and familiarity and everything else. They're relatively young. So wait a minute. I love how you just sit there and ignore certain things. Manu Ginobili and Tony Parker have been playing together for a decade.
So
that kind of counts.
Thank you. You're making my argument.
No. That kind of counts. I'm simply saying, not only have you been playing together, you've been playing for the same coach in the same system with the same future Hall of Famer who just happens to be the best power forward in history.
Yeah, who's like 48 years old.
And still can do it to anybody. Can do it to anybody.
Wait.
So what I'm saying is, you just ignore those kind of things. I'm like this. Listen, if you're playing basketball and you're a liability defensively out on the perimeter, and you go up against a LeBron James, right? Look, force him to his right, because he has difficulty going to his right and then pulling up. Force him to his right. Play this side. We're going to shut off half the court. We got Tim Duncan laying in the post. Now, let's say, for example, there's no Tim Duncan. And let's just say, for the sake of argument, Skip Bayless,
he's an old man.
Tim Duncan doesn't.
You are so wrong.
Tim Duncan and Popovich isn't there. And let's just say it's some novice coach. And oh, by the way, Tiago Splitter is your guy.
Yeah.
All right.
And Aaron Baines is back there, too.
And Aaron Baines. You don't think it would be a little bit different? You just ignore all the components that actually come with playing the game.
How about Andrew Bogut? Sorry.
Oh, you talk about Bogus? Yes.
Gentleman.
He's very upset.
Okay, so you
in a vacuum,
you
I will
you're
take
taking Tony
Parker and Manu over any of these guys.
And you're
for
saying
the money.
It's Steph Curry
for the money.
Clay.
The best backcourt in the NBA is Steph Curry and Klay Thompson.
The precision of Aikman and his ability to make those 30-yard handoffs and put that football on a rope, keeping the defense from ever stacking the line of scrimmage for you and allowing Emmett to have that running room. How many runs did he have before he wasn't even hit for 4 or 5 yards? And so when they went up to stop that, then they opened it up, and Aikman and Michael and Novacek, they just cut them up. That team had it going balanced. That balance is starting to look a little familiar.
All right. They're 3-1. We're 4 games in. Jerry Jones making comparisons to the glory days, folks. Gotta love Jerry.
Gotta not love Jerry.
Do you like what Jerry had to say?
Stephen A., I despised what this man said. No, Jerry, no. He just can't help himself. He just can't stop the runaway freight train that is Jerry Jones when he's put on live radio. Stephen A., his team is 3-1. It has a chance to be pretty good. I think it's going to win the NFC East. But Jerry is leaping to compare it to a team that won 3 out of 4 Super Bowls and should have won all 4 of those Super Bowls. It's mind-blowing to me. I guess if you really, really reach, it's remotely familiar that they're both balanced run and pass. The run is setting up the pass. And I do appreciate the fact that Jerry did say at the end of this radio interview, now, I'm not going to say that this is that team yet. You know, he's not saying that this team is that team. And he said, I shouldn't, or you all would run me off the phone, which is Jerry's way of saying you'd take me off this radio show. But he will say, he says that the balance is starting to look a little familiar. Who cares? It's not. I mean, why would you even start with that? Why would you start to reflect on, remember me, I built the 1990 Dallas Cowboys. It's so unfair to add undue pressure to a team that's just trying to get used to handling a little pressure.
All that may be true, Skip Bayless, but I have no problem with Jerry.
I'm sure you don't.
I mean, I understand that Tony Romo can potentially be an accident waiting to happen, but nevertheless, when he is having shining moments, it sort of resembles Troy Aikman a little bit. Des Bryant, his personality and abilities, it sort of mirrors Michael Irvin a little bit.
Maybe that does. I'll give you that one a little bit. Even though not the leader.
When you look at Emmitt Smith, well, DeMarco Murray, the way he's running the football for these first 3 games, I mean, I think there's some comparison. When you look at the offensive line with Martin and Fredericks and those boys. And Smith, I'm not so sure this is so far-fetched. I mean, when I look at the Dallas...
So you're pouring gasoline on the fire.
When I look at the Dallas Cowboys, I must acknowledge that there does appear to be similarities. So what I would encourage the Dallas faithful throughout the nation, along with Dallas fans locally, to do is listen to Jerry Jones comparisons, and then look and notice the similarities, and then feel free to hold the team accountable for whether or not they live up to those expectations. I have no problem.
You have no problem with it.
Not whatsoever.
You have a problem with it.